Introduction. Topic: Reflections on non-self. Money is not me. Have you ever noticed how easily we tie our sense of worth to the size of our bank account? Somewhere along the way, many of us were taught, sometimes without words, that more money equals more value, more recognition, more security. It's almost as if society whispers constantly, if you don't have enough, you're not enough. And so, we chase, we compare, and we fear losing what we already hold in our hands. But here's the truth: money is not you. It never was. The Buddha, over 2,500 years ago, pointed to something radical, something most of us still struggle to grasp today. He taught about anatta, the truth of non-self. What does that mean? It means that the meat we cling to, my money, my possessions, my reputation, my status, is not a solid, permanent self. These are temporary conditions, coming together for a while and eventually falling apart. Just like sandcastles at the edge of the tide, no matter how high or beautiful, the waves will one day wash them away. Think about it. Have you ever lost money? A wallet gone missing? A job that didn't work out? An investment that crashed, and felt like you lost part of yourself? That sinking feeling isn't just about numbers on paper. It's the illusion that my money is me, so when money disappears, so does my sense of identity. But if we really see clearly, money is just paper, or more often now, just digital numbers floating in a system. It can never define your true worth. Here's another way to look at it. Imagine holding a gold coin. You could feel proud of it, cling to it, or fear someone might take it away. But if you place that same coin in the palm of a child who doesn't yet understand money, to them, it's just a shiny object, maybe even a toy. The coin itself hasn't changed. What changes is the story we attach to it. Our suffering begins not from the coin itself, but from the belief that its presence or absence makes me more or less valuable. The Buddha's teaching is liberating because it reveals a simple but profound truth: money is a tool, not an identity. When we confuse it with who we are, we suffer. When we see it as it is, temporary, changing, useful, but not defining, we begin to relax. We stop grasping so tightly. And with that release comes freedom, peace, even joy. So I invite you to pause and ask yourself, when you look at your life, do you measure your worth by the things you own, or by the peace you carry in your heart? If tomorrow you lost your wealth, would you truly disappear, or would you still be here, breathing, capable of kindness, wisdom, and love? The starting point of wisdom is to see clearly: money is not me. It's not who I am. And once we understand this, even a little, we can start living with a lighter heart, using money as a servant rather than letting it become our master. The empty wallet. Have you ever lost your wallet? Maybe it slipped out of your pocket at the grocery store, or you left it behind in a cab. In that moment, your heart sinks. Panic sets in. Suddenly, all the thoughts rush in at once. What if someone steals my money? What about my ID? My credit cards? My whole day is ruined. A young man once went through this exact experience. He dropped his wallet on the street without realizing it. Hours later, when he noticed it was missing, he was devastated. For days, he couldn't sleep. His mind kept circling around the same worry: without my wallet, without my money, who am I? How will I manage? And then, one morning, someone returned it. Intact. Not a dollar missing. In that instant, his sorrow turned into joy. Relief washed over him like a wave. He couldn't stop smiling. But here's the question: what actually changed? The man himself hadn't changed. His body, his mind, his potential, all of that was the same whether the wallet was in his pocket or not. The only thing that changed was the presence or absence of a small object made of leather and paper. And yet, his entire sense of self, his mood, even his view of life shifted dramatically because of it. Why do we let our happiness and suffering be ruled by things outside of us? This is where the Buddha's wisdom comes in. He taught that money is not you. It's not your essence, not your identity. It's just something external, useful, yes, but never who you are. It comes, it goes, and it changes hands countless times. If we tie our worth to it, we'll always be at the mercy of gain and loss, trapped in a cycle of fear and craving. Think about it. If tomorrow you misplaced $100, would that truly mean you have become less valuable? And if you suddenly found $100 on the ground, does that mean you are suddenly a better human being? Of course not. But that's exactly how our minds often trick us. We confuse what we have with who we are. Here's another perspective. Imagine you're watching the ocean tide. Sometimes the water rushes in, filling the shore. Sometimes it pulls back, leaving the sand exposed. If you stood there insisting, the water must always be full, it must never leave, you would suffer endlessly. But if you understood, the tide naturally comes and goes, you could enjoy it as it is, without fear. Money is like that tide. It flows in and out. But you are not the tide. You are the awareness that watches it. The Buddha called this understanding anatta, or non-self. When you see that money is not me, all mine, something opens inside. You start to feel lighter. Losing money no longer feels like losing yourself. Gaining money no longer inflates your ego. It simply becomes a tool, a resource you use wisely, but never a prison that defines your worth. So next time you feel your mood rise or fall based on your wallet, your bank balance, or your possessions, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, if all of this vanished, would I still be here? Would I still breathe, think, love, and live? The answer is yes. And that realization can be the beginning of true freedom. Because money can be replaced. A wallet can be lost and found. But the true treasure, the peace of knowing who you are beyond possessions, can never be taken away. The mirror and the gold coin. Imagine standing in front of a mirror with a shiny gold coin in your hand. You hold it up, and instantly, the mirror reflects its brightness. The coin glitters, multiplied in the glass, as if there's more than one. For a moment, you might even be captivated by the sparkling image. But here's the thing, the mirror itself never changes. It stays clear, untouched, perfectly still, whether the coin is there or not. This simple image reveals something profound about our relationship with money. Most of us live like the reflection, captivated, distracted, even defined by what we see. But the Buddha invites us to live more like the mirror, present, aware, but free from attachment. Let's pause and think about this. How often does money show up in our mirror of life? Maybe it's when you check your bank account, see your paycheck arrive, or feel anxious as bills pile up. Each number, each dollar, shines like that gold coin, sparking joy when it increases, stirring fear when it decreases. But underneath it all, the real question is, are you the reflection, or are you the mirror? The mirror metaphor is powerful because it shows us what non-attachment looks like in practice. When you place a coin in front of the mirror, the reflection appears. When you take it away, the reflection vanishes. The mirror doesn't cry when the coin is gone. It doesn't cling when the coin is present. It just reflects, moment by moment, with clarity. This is exactly how a person who understands anatta, non-self, relates to money. They see it, acknowledge it, use it wisely, but they don't let it stick to their sense of identity. Money is simply part of life's flow, not the core of who they are. Now, let me ask you, what happens inside when you think about losing money? Does your chest tighten, your thoughts race, maybe even your self-esteem drop? And what happens when you gain money, maybe a bonus, an unexpected gift, or a profitable investment? Do you suddenly feel taller, more valuable, more secure? That's the reflection tricking you. The truth is, you remain the same. It's just the mirror showing different images. Here's another way to picture it. Think of the sky. Clouds drift by, some dark and stormy, some light and beautiful. If the sky thought it was the clouds, it would always be in turmoil. But the sky is simply the open space where clouds appear and disappear. You are like that sky. Money, success, and possessions are like the clouds. They come and go, but they are never truly you. What the Buddha pointed out is simple but life-changing. When we confuse ourselves with the reflection, we suffer. When we remember we are the mirror, we are free. So the next time money enters your life, whether as gain or loss, take a deep breath and imagine that mirror. Can you notice the reflection without clinging to it? Can you let money be what it is, shiny, useful, temporary, without letting it define who you are? Because in the end, the mirror's beauty lies in its clarity, not in what passes before it. And your true worth lies in your awareness, compassion, and wisdom, not in the coins that come and go. The farmer and the harvest. Picture a farmer who spends his entire year preparing the land. He tills the soil, plants the seeds, waters the fields, and prays for the right balance of rain and sunshine. But one year, the weather turns against him. Storms come too early, or drought burns the soil. The crops fail. His barn remains empty. He feels crushed, believing his life has collapsed along with his harvest. But the very next year, fortune seems to turn. The rain falls just right, the sun shines at the perfect time, and the farmer's fields overflow with grain. Suddenly, he is filled with joy, convinced that life has finally smiled on him. Now, here's the question: did the farmer himself truly change between those 2 years? Did his worth as a person rise and fall with the crops? Or was it simply the shifting of conditions, weather, soil, timing, that created his suffering or joy? This story is not just about farming. It's about us. Because whether we live in the city or the countryside, we all have our harvests. For some of us, it's the balance in our bank accounts. For others, it's the success of our business, the rise and fall of our investments, or even the approval we get from others. When things go our way, we feel on top of the world. When they collapse, we feel like we've lost everything. The Buddha's teaching reminds us that material conditions are never permanent. They arise because of causes and conditions, what Buddhists call dependent origination. The crops grow when rain, soil, labor, and time align. They fail when those same conditions shift. In the same way, money, possessions, and success come and go depending on countless factors, many beyond our control. If we tie our sense of self to those shifting conditions, we'll forever be tossed around like a leaf in the wind. One season of abundance makes us elated. One season of loss drags us into despair. Life becomes an endless roller coaster, not because of what happens, but because we've mistaken possessions for identity. Think about it. Have you ever had a moment where you thought, if I lose this job, my life is over? Or if I can't keep up financially, I am worthless? And yet, when time passed, didn't you find yourself still breathing, still alive, still capable of love, wisdom, and joy, even without the thing you thought defined you? This is the freedom that comes with seeing through the illusion. When we understand that material wealth is just like a harvest, sometimes abundant, sometimes scarce, we stop letting it define us. We begin to use money wisely when it's there, and face loss with steadiness when it isn't. The Buddha never said we shouldn't plant seeds or care about our work. What he taught was that our happiness cannot depend solely on results we can't control. True peace comes when we cultivate inner qualities, kindness, patience, wisdom, that no storm can wash away. So the next time your harvest doesn't go as planned, ask yourself, am I really less because of this loss? Or is it simply life's changing seasons? And when things are abundant, can I enjoy them without clinging, knowing that this too will pass? Because in the end, we are not the harvest. We are the farmer, the one who plants, who learns, who grows through every season, whether it brings sun or storm. Have you ever noticed how a simple piece of clothing can change the way you feel about yourself? Imagine a poor man wearing an old, torn shirt. Every time he steps into a crowd, he lowers his head, hoping no one will notice him. He feels small, invisible, almost ashamed of existing. But then, one day, he puts on a brand new suit. Suddenly, his back straightens, his voice grows louder, and he feels worthy of being seen. It seems like the new clothes gave him confidence, but here's the deeper question: did he truly become more valuable? Or was it just fabric covering the same body? Buddha once pointed out that we often mistake material things, money, possessions, even appearances, for who we are. We believe, if I wear this, if I own that, then I am somebody. But this sense of self is fragile, because it's built on things outside of us, things that can be taken away. Think about it: when your shirt tears, do you feel like you've lost your dignity? When your bank account shrinks, do you feel like your worth as a human being has also disappeared? If so, it means you've tied your identity to things that were never truly you in the first place. This is the trap of the ego. The mind whispers, I am my clothes, I am my car, I am my money. But Buddha gently reminds us, none of these are you. They are temporary, borrowed conditions, like a costume you wear for a while. The costume can make you appear different in the eyes of others, but underneath, you are still the same person. Here's something worth reflecting on. Who would you be if everything external was stripped away? If your clothes, house, bank account, and even your job title disappeared, what would remain? Would you still recognize yourself? Many people panic at this thought, because they've built their entire self-image on fragile things. But this reflection is not meant to frighten us, it's meant to set us free. When we realize that our essence is not tied to money or possessions, we stop clinging so tightly to them. We can use them wisely, enjoy them when they come, but not collapse when they go. Think back to that man with the new suit. His confidence didn't truly come from the fabric, it came from his belief. The suit was just a trigger. But imagine if he learned to walk confidently even in his old shirt, because he understood that his value is deeper than clothing. That kind of confidence cannot be taken away. So, here's the teaching: money and possessions are tools, not identity. They can help us live, but they cannot define who we are. Your worth is not in your bank account, it's in your heart, your kindness, your awareness, and your freedom from illusions. Maybe tonight, as you fold your clothes or glance at your wallet, ask yourself, if these things vanish tomorrow, would I still know who I am? If the answer is yes, you are already walking the path of wisdom that Buddha pointed to, the path of letting go of the false self. There's an old story told in the Buddhist tradition. A great king once came to the Buddha with a question that still feels fresh today. The king, surrounded by wealth and luxury, leaned forward and asked, if a man has no gold or silver, how can he be considered rich? It's a question many of us silently carry. We measure richness by the number in our bank account, the size of our home, or the brand of the clothes we wear. And so, when money is low, we feel poor, not only in our wallets, but also in our hearts. But the Buddha smiled gently and answered, one who has wisdom, compassion, and inner peace is already rich, even without money. At first, this might sound like a nice spiritual slogan, but think about it carefully. What happens if your wealth disappears overnight? Stocks can crash, businesses can fail, accidents can strip away years of savings in a moment. Does that mean your value as a person also disappears? Or is there something deeper within you that no one and nothing can take away? Let me ask you directly, would you rather have a bank account filled with zeros, but a heart empty of peace? Or a modest income with a mind that sleeps soundly at night? When we are honest with ourselves, most of us know which one is the greater treasure. Here's the paradox: money can buy comfort, but it cannot buy meaning. Money can pay for medicine, but it cannot guarantee health. Money can surround us with people, but it cannot guarantee love. The king's question was rooted in the belief that gold is the true measure of richness, but the Buddha turned the question inside out. Richness, he said, is not about possession. It's about perception. It's about who you are when everything external is stripped away. I once heard a friend share that after losing his job, he felt like he had lost his identity. But later, during that period of uncertainty, he discovered something surprising. He began volunteering at a community kitchen. He had no paycheck, but for the first time, he felt truly alive, truly useful. That's when he realized what the Buddha meant. Wealth isn't only stored in banks, it can also be stored in the heart. So, what is the real treasure? It's wisdom, the ability to see clearly what matters and what doesn't. It's compassion, the kind of wealth that multiplies every time you give it away. And it's peace, the inner freedom that keeps you steady when life rises and falls. These treasures are invisible, but they shape our lives more deeply than gold ever could. And here's the liberating truth. When you stop identifying with wealth as yourself, when you no longer say, "I am rich," or "I am poor," as though those words define your soul, you begin to touch something infinite. The ego tied to money is fragile, but the wisdom of no self, what Buddhism calls anatta, opens you to a wealth that never runs out. So maybe the real question is not, do I have enough money to be rich? But am I living with enough wisdom and compassion to be free? Because in the end, it's not your gold that makes you valuable, it's your heart. Have you ever stood by a river and just watched it flow? One moment it's calm and quiet, reflecting the sky like a mirror. The next, after a storm, it surges with wild force, carrying branches and debris along its way. Rivers are never the same. They shift, they swell, they dry up, and they change course. Money is a lot like that. Sometimes it flows into our lives easily, steady paychecks, good investments, unexpected opportunities. Other times, it feels like a drought, bills piling up, work slowing down, savings running thin. Like the river, wealth is always moving, always changing. The trouble begins when we mistake that flow for our identity. If we believe, "I am my money," then every rise and fall in the river becomes a rise and fall in our sense of self. When money comes in, we feel worthy, powerful, secure. When it goes out, we feel small, defeated, even worthless. But think about it, is the river yours? Can you control every turn it takes? The Buddha taught that money, like the river, is not truly ours. It passes through. It supports life, yes, but it is not life itself. And it certainly isn't who we are. Imagine holding water in your hands. You try to grasp it tightly, but the harder you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. That's exactly what happens when we cling to wealth as our identity. The grasping doesn't bring security, it brings fear, anxiety, and the constant need for more. Here's a different way to see it. What if money is simply like water flowing through a channel? Sometimes there's more, sometimes less, but your value doesn't rise and fall with the tide. You remain the riverbank, steady and grounded, no matter how the current changes. I've met people who had very little money, but carried themselves with a dignity and peace that no fortune could buy. And I've also met people with great wealth who lived in constant fear of losing it, like someone building a sandcastle too close to the waves. Which one, do you think, was truly free? The Buddhist teaching of anatta, or no self, invites us to step back and see clearly, money is not me, not mine, not myself. It is a condition, a resource, a flow. Just as we don't say, "I am the rain," we don't need to say, "I am my wealth." When we let go of that illusion, something beautiful happens. We can use money wisely, like water to nourish the fields, without drowning in it. So let me ask you, how do you relate to your own financial river? Do you fight against its current, fearing every drought and clinging to every flood? Or can you stand on the shore, knowing the water will keep moving, and that your worth is not carried away with it? Because in the end, freedom doesn't come from owning the river. It comes from realizing you were never the river to begin with. The father's inheritance. There's an old story about a wealthy man who worked tirelessly his whole life to build up a fortune. When he passed away, he left his entire estate to his son. For a while, the son lived in comfort, enjoying the luxuries that his father's hard work had provided. But within just a few years, through poor decisions and bad luck, the wealth was gone. The son was devastated, not just by the loss of money, but by the collapse of his very sense of self. He thought, if I don't have wealth, then who am I? And that's the question worth pausing on. Why do we so often believe that what we own defines who we are? The Buddha pointed to a deeper truth: wealth is not something we can ever truly hold on to. It's temporary, conditional, fragile. You can inherit it, you can earn it, you can lose it, and none of it will follow you beyond the boundary of this life. When we die, not a single coin, not a single house, not a single title goes with us. What does stay is something far more subtle and far more powerful: the quality of our mind, the habits of our heart, the choices we've made, what in Buddhism is called karma. Think about it. If you had to choose between inheriting $1 million or inheriting a calm, wise, compassionate mind, which one would actually give you a life of real peace? Money can buy pleasure, but not freedom from suffering. It can build walls, but not connection. It can extend comfort, but not meaning. A mind trained in compassion, however, that's a gift that keeps giving no matter the circumstance. We often forget this truth in the rush of everyday life. Maybe you've seen it too: families torn apart over inheritance disputes, siblings who stop speaking to each other because of money. The father worked his whole life to leave behind security, but instead left behind seeds of division and pain. Why? Because we confuse wealth with identity. We think, this money is me, this property is mine, this inheritance defines my worth. But it never does. Here's the liberating shift the Buddha offered: our real inheritance is not gold or property, it's the state of our consciousness. If we cultivate generosity, kindness, and wisdom, that's what travels with us through every circumstance, even beyond this life. If we cultivate greed, anger, and ignorance, no fortune can save us from the suffering they create. So let me ask you, what kind of inheritance are you preparing for your loved ones, not just in your will, but in your presence, your actions, your way of being today? When your children or the people closest to you think of you, will they remember the money you left behind, or the kindness, the patience, the laughter, the lessons? The son in the story lost all the wealth his father gave him, but if his father had passed down wisdom and resilience, no bankruptcy could have touched him. That kind of inheritance never runs out. The Buddha's teaching is simple yet profound: money will not walk beside you into the future, but your actions, your character, your heart, that's the true treasure that stays. The moon's reflection in water. Have you ever looked at a full moon on a still night, and seen its reflection shining perfectly on the surface of a lake or pond? To the eye, it looks so real, bright, beautiful, almost within reach. A child, seeing this for the first time, might run to the water, reaching out to catch the moon. But of course, no matter how hard they try, their hands return empty. What they saw was only a reflection, an image, not the reality. Money is much the same. From a distance, it shines like the moon's reflection, captivating us with its promise of security, comfort, even happiness. We chase after it, believing that if we can just grasp enough of it, we'll finally be complete. But just like the child reaching into the pond, our hands often come up empty, or, even when we do grasp something, it slips away, never truly satisfying the deeper hunger. The Buddha used images like this to remind us that much of what we cling to in life is like an illusion. Wealth, possessions, status, they appear solid, but in truth they are reflections, temporary patterns on the surface of existence. When we mistake those reflections for our own self, we live in delusion. Here's a simple example. Imagine someone saying, "I am rich," or "I am poor." Notice how easily money becomes welded to identity. If wealth increases, they feel their worth has increased. If wealth decreases, they feel diminished. But just like the moon's reflection, money isn't who we are. It's only something that appears for a time, changing with the ripples of circumstance. The danger lies in chasing the reflection. We run harder, strive more, sacrifice our health, our peace of mind, sometimes even our integrity, believing that once we catched enough, we'll finally hold the real thing. But have you noticed? The more we chase, the more restless we feel. The reflection is always just out of reach, because it was never solid to begin with. The Buddha's teaching of anatta, or no self, cuts right to the heart of this. You are not your wealth. You are not your possessions. You are not even the reflection of status that the world sees. Beneath all of that, your true nature is clear, like the mirror-like surface of the pond itself. When you realize this, you don't need to chase the moon in the water, you can simply lift your eyes and see the real moon shining in the sky. Think about your own life. Have there been times when you sacrificed peace for the illusion of financial gain? Or moments when you tied your sense of self-worth to the number in your bank account? How would it feel to let go of that illusion, to recognize that money may come and go, but your true value doesn't flicker with its rise and fall? This doesn't mean money has no use. Just as the reflection of the moon can guide a traveler at night, money can serve practical purposes. It can support our families, ease our journeys, help us share and give. But the moment we confuse it with who we are, we fall into the same trap as the child trying to scoop up the moon's reflection. The wisdom is simple: use money, but don't mistake it for yourself. See the reflection for what it is, and look beyond it to the light that can never be lost. The wealthy but restless. We often assume that wealth equals peace. That once we have enough money in the bank, enough property, enough investments, then finally we can rest easy. But have you ever noticed that sometimes the wealthiest people are also the most restless? I once heard about a businessman who had more than enough to live 10 lifetimes in comfort. Yet every night, he lay awake, unable to sleep. He worried about the stock market. He feared thieves. He suspected his employees. He even felt uneasy around his own family, afraid they loved him only for what he had. On the surface, he was rich beyond measure. But inside, he was poor, poor in peace, poor in trust, poor in joy. Now contrast that with another man I once met, a simple monk who owned little more than his robe and a bowl. He had no bank account, no title, no property. Yet when you sat beside him, you felt a deep calm, like sitting near a still lake at dawn. He smiled easily, spoke gently, and carried no trace of fear in his eyes. By every financial standard, he was poor. And yet, if you measured wealth in terms of inner peace, he was richer than any millionaire. The Buddha pointed directly to this paradox. True peace does not come from clinging to wealth. In fact, the more we identify money as me or mine, the more fragile we become. Because money can be lost, stolen, devalued, or outshone by someone else's fortune. And if our sense of self is tied to it, then every fluctuation in our finances shakes our very identity. That is why the rich man in the story could not sleep. His self was held hostage by numbers on a page. But when we understand anatta, the teaching of no self, something shifts. We see that money is not who we are. It's not our essence. It's just a tool, useful, yes, but never the measure of our being. When we see this clearly, money loses its power to chain us. Whether we have a lot or a little, our inner balance stays intact. Here's a question worth reflecting on. Would you rather have $1 billion with constant fear and stress, or just enough to live simply, but with deep trust, joy, and peace? It's easy to say both, but life often shows us we must choose what to value most. The Buddha's wisdom reminds us that peace of mind is the greatest treasure, and unlike money, no one can steal it from you. Think of it this way: if wealth were the true source of happiness, then every billionaire should be overflowing with joy. But are they? And if poverty automatically meant misery, how do we explain those who have little yet live with radiant peace? The difference lies not in the bank account, but in the mind. The invitation is simple but profound. Shift your sense of identity away from possessions and toward presence. When you stop saying, "Money is me," you discover a freedom no amount of currency can buy. The Buddha's teaching is not about rejecting money, but about loosening the grip it has on our hearts. When money becomes a servant rather than a master, we can live wisely, give generously, and rest peacefully, whether our pockets are full or empty. Hook, the flame and the ashes. Have you ever watched a fire burn brightly, only to fade into ashes? For a moment, the flames dance as if they'll last forever. But no matter how fierce, every fire eventually dies down, leaving only smoke and dust. Money is the same. It burns bright in our lives, it fuels desires, builds comfort, creates movement, but just like fire, it doesn't last. It comes, it goes, and it never truly belongs to us. Think about it. How many stories have we heard of people who gained immense wealth, only to lose it in a market crash, a business failure, or even just through the passage of time? The fire that once felt unstoppable turned into ashes overnight. And yet, we often cling to money as if it's the essence of who we are, our identity, our worth, our security. But the Buddha reminds us, money is not me, it is not mine. It is only a condition that arises, stays for a while, and disappears. Here's the paradox. The tighter we hold onto money as if it defines us, the more fragile and fearful we become. But when we see it as just a tool, a flame that can warm us, but not define us, we learn how to live with freedom. Imagine handling money the way you handle fire, carefully, skillfully, but without trying to possess the flame itself. You can benefit from it, but you don't mistake it for your very being. The teaching of anatta, or no self, offers us a radical shift. It shows us that money doesn't carry our identity, just as fire doesn't carry permanence. We are not richer because of the dollars in our pocket, nor poorer because of their absence. Our true value lies in how we live, how we love, how we bring peace to ourselves and others. So the question is, do you want to spend your life chasing flames that will inevitably turn to ash? Or do you want to walk with the wisdom that money is only a means, never the measure of your being? When you see this clearly, money becomes a servant, not a master. It becomes a tool for compassion, for creating joy, for supporting life, but never a chain to your identity. In the end, the fire dies, the ashes scatter. And yet, when we understand that our worth was never tied to the flame, we walk lighter, freer, and infinitely more at peace. Closing script. At the end of the day, when we truly see the nature of non-self, something beautiful happens. We stop confusing I with money. We no longer measure our entire existence by what sits in our wallet or our bank account. Life becomes lighter. If money comes, we use it wisely, to create goodness, to help others, to ease suffering. And if money goes, we don't lose ourselves with it. Because money was never us to begin with. It's only a tool, a passing condition. Freedom doesn't come from having or not having. It comes from no longer being chained to the idea that our worth depends on it. Think about it. How many of us have seen people with great wealth, but heavy hearts? Or people with little yet carrying peace in their eyes? The difference lies not in the numbers, but in the mind. To see money as just a servant, not a master, is to walk with a quiet kind of dignity that no amount of wealth can buy. And here lies the profound truth. Money is a means, but non-self is freedom. When you live with this understanding, you can face gain and loss, success and failure, abundance and scarcity, with the same calm breath. You know that none of it defines you. As the Buddha once said, it is not what we possess that makes us who we are. It is awareness, it is compassion, that reveals the true value of a human being. So may we learn to live not as slaves of what we own, but as free beings who know how to love, how to share, and how to be awake in this fleeting world. That is the kind of wealth that never fades.